kids get out,
Yeah,
because we still have the week to go before our kids are gone, so
yeah.
trying to get it all done.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Doing great, doing great. Ready for the kids
Hello.
to be out.
I was going to say, are all the kids gone now? Does anybody still have kids in the building?
I still
We
do.
do. Still there.
Still there.
Yeah, with big smiles, still there.
Yep, you love to see them come, but you love to see them go. I tell you what, this time
We're
of year.
still testing. We're
Oh,
still
Lord.
testing.
All right, I've got a question for you. Sparkle. Sparkle's a star. We talked about this last week, didn't we, about retests? Why don't you get to count the retest in your overall proficiency rate? You know, when your kids take the test and you got a proficiency cutoff, and you know, if they make this high, they're proficient. If they didn't, and the ones that are within like 5 points, you let them retake it. You know, you do what, 1 day of remediation? Yes, right. And then you retest them. Why can't
Yeah,
you count if they pass the second time? They're close. Why can't you count them in proficiency?
well, according to, I thought that you could, but
No, you can't
you
count
do
them on the
growth.
proficiency. You can count them
Is
on
this the
growth, but not proficiency.
I don't know.
Isn't it because that's how they do the norms and they do the standard deviation so that we can you get the official, right? Because usually in the beginning they're like, don't share the scores. We have to make
Right.
sure it's all done.
Yeah,
Everyone's
they
done
norm
testing.
those. That's right. But here's the statistical theory behind this is called regression to the mean. That over time, scores will regress back to normal. So what that means is test scores are a function of two things, skill and luck, when you're taking a multiple choice test. The skill part has two parts, content and process. You're always looking in education for programs that address content. If you want to do better on a math test, if you know more math, you'll do better. But it just practicing how to take the math test. If you get a little bit of gain, it'll go away, because pretty soon they're practiced at taking the test. And so that's called regression to the mean. That's on the skill side. So too many educational programs are just a gimmick. They're just how to take the test better, how to guess better, basically. All right, so that's the second part of a test score is the luck part, is the guessing. And so the reason why you can't count the retest toward proficiency is while you gave the kids within 5 points of the cut score, proficiency score, the chance to be lucky on the second test administration, you did not give the kids who were only 5 points above the cut score the chance to be unlucky. So what would happen, let's say 60% of your kids were proficient on the first test. If you let the ones within 5 points retake the test, but you made the ones within 5 above the cut score, you'd still end up with 60% passing. Some of them would change places, though. Could you imagine the public furor if you were to do that? And so the notion here is understanding we're not going to give them kids a chance to be unlucky. We got their scores in the bank. We're going to give these a chance to be lucky, but statistically we can't count that. And as Rebecca said, we do our norms and standard deviations off that first administration. But basically, retest is just giving the kids a chance to be lucky. That's all we're doing. We didn't remediate those kids.
Well, my school was in trouble because our 8th grade math, we got 3%.
Oh my!
So we're in trouble.
Now, along with that, when you're in the doctoral program with me, I'll teach you this stuff. Is the notion of some kids just aren't good test takers. There's no such thing. If they don't know anything, they don't test well. If they know stuff, they'll test well. There's no such thing as not being a good test taker. That's a myth. That's another one of those things that I hear. but there is a way that you can work with kids. The main thing is giving kids math tests all the time, or like worksheets. That's the same, and that's just the process of taking the test. If you want kids to do better on math, you teach them more mathematics. That's the way that works with any discipline. It's just like if you want to fatten up a hog, you feed him, you don't weigh him all the time. There's got to be some instruction. Part of the problem with MTSS is we're putting all of our effort in the remediation part. That's the intervention piece. It's really remediation. If we had better instruction on the front end, because what teachers say is, well, I'm just going to cover this material. I'm not going to slow down. I'm going to stick to the pacing guide. Kids aren't getting it. We'll just catch it on the intervention end. Doesn't work. Unfortunately, there's some statistical processes that take effect there as well. And so the notion is intervention is a good thing if you understand core instruction should be where you put your time, effort, and energy. I hear about, well, we've got half of our kids in intervention. Well, that's not a good thing. That means that your core instruction is not good. And the reason I went through all that is to kind of introduce tonight's topic. We'll get to it in a minute, which is intervention in EC. And there's some bad information out there on intervention in EC, and hopefully we'll clear up some of those things tonight as we work through this module. So let's talk about our weekly schedule. So this week, let me share my screen. This week we were concluding human resources. Let me pull this up now. Our weekly schedule. And then we were looking at intervention and EC for the coming week. So let me read through the stars of the week, the things that caught my eye this week. Robin did a great job on her OMA task 2. I think we mentioned that last week. Heather did a great job on her discussion board 2. Her OMA was excellent. I liked it. Macy talked about allotment sheets, and I want to talk about allotment sheets for a minute, and so I'll stop my share. Several of you mentioned allotment sheets. All right, what is an allotment sheet in personnel? Well, what an allotment sheet is your central office sends you a sheet that says, this is how many, let's say we'll use Roger. Where's Roger? There's Roger. Roger is a high school man. That allotment sheet would have how many English teachers, how many math teachers, how many science teachers, those kind. It'd have how many, he'd have his federal, how many CTE teachers he gets. Now, here's the problem with that. That allotment sheet is based on a projection for the next school year of how many kids they think you will have. It's not set in stone. What happens? So at 10 days, we see what we are on enrollment, and man, we got to get out and find them kids, especially in elementary school. At the 20th day, what happens if you didn't make your projected enrollment? What happens to your allotment? Ever heard of losing a teacher? Everybody on the screen is going to say, yeah. How'd that happen? Well, whoever sent out the allotment sheet, and you'll never find out who did that because nobody wants to take blame. They all have amnesia when you say, well, who made this allotment sheet that said I needed 6 math teachers? I don't need but 4. I got to tell 2 people they can't work here. I've got to redo my master schedule. Now parents are going to be screaming at me because I've got all these kids in class. Who said we were going to have all these kids? And everybody at central office is like, well, it just like was manna from, it just fell out of the sky. Nobody will accept responsibility. And so the principal has to wear that. And so that's one of those beatings that you take that you didn't earn or didn't deserve, but you're going to get it anyway if you don't meet your allotment totals. That's what we call them, allotment totals. And you say, well, what do you mean allotment? That's how the number, yeah, but those allotment totals are based on your average daily attendance, how many kids show up, not how many on the roll. Not how many are on the roll, how many of them show up. And after COVID, this is a big problem, folks, getting out and beating the bushes and finding your kids. Are they still out there? And that also circulates back to that child find part of exceptional children. You know, if an exceptional children kid resides in your district and he don't show up for school, you got to go find him. Let me say that again. If you have a child who is an identified exceptionality, he's one of the 9 or 16, whatever, how many your district recognizes as federal exceptionalities, EC, you know, learning disabled, SLD, whatever, and he doesn't show up at your school, but he was on your roll to show up, you got to go find him. He might be over to the local charter school. If he's over there or at the local private school, you're required to give him services if he belongs to you. If he's being homeschooled, you got to find him. So we have to get out and find our students, because if they're not showing up, we don't get paid. We only get paid for the ones that come. It affects our teacher allotment, because who pays for our teachers? The state does, or the feds does. And if the kids don't show up, the money don't show up behind them. The money follows the kids. So you got to know that allotment sheet, it's a fluid thing, and it's not set in stone. You can't say, well, they said I could hire 4 teachers and I hired them. Yeah, but that was depending on what we thought you were going to have in terms of the number of kids that were going to show up every day at your building. They didn't show up, the teachers got to go somewhere else. And that is a disaster public relations wise for a principal, by the way, because guess what? Who do the parents think caused that problem? They think the principal caused that problem. They think you did something wrong. No, I couldn't have done anything. They won't let me hire people I don't have an allotment for. So obviously I had an allotment. It doesn't matter. It's your fault. Your fault my kid's got 30 in his 3rd grade room instead of the 20 that we started the year with. No, I'm not about to do that. So, you know, I've had that with them. Just like last semester, I was told we had to collapse in classes last semester, had to split students up, just pass them around all different cohorts. And I said, no, not doing it. We're still going to have a C2 and a C4. We'll teach C2 on Tuesday night like we always do, C4 on Wednesday night. Y'all pay me whatever y'all want to pay me is fine with me. But I'm not about to start taking groups and splitting them up and scattering them around and overloading everybody else's classes. I've taken that whipping before. I'd rather teach a class for free than to go through that. And that's exactly what I did. Money's immaterial to me anyway. I'm not a hero here. But the whole idea is if you've ever been through that, you know what a problem it is when you take a cohort of students and you start splitting them up, sending them here, there, and everywhere. And unbalancing your master schedule. I mean, it just goes to hell. But that's part of what you're going to get into with hiring, unfortunately. I hate that, but what you hope is whoever that you got that tells you what your allotment is that they know what they're doing. I've been in places, some are better than others. Some were a lot better than others. And so that allotment sheet that tells you how many you're supposed to have of everything, we start with that when we're hiring. And then we go through the process. But know that hiring sheet is fluid. Again, Rebecca pointed out the allotment sheet is a projection. Keisha had a model submission for her OMA. Olivia talked about access issues on her safety report. I like that one. Names instead of positions. Leslie made a good point. Is Leslie with us tonight? Let's see if she's on the screen. Oh, she's in tomorrow night's group. All right. So Leslie pointed out something. I'm glad that people are paying attention. That on compensation and benefits, we have front-loaded compensation and benefits now in public school in North Carolina, and South Carolina is not so much, but North Carolina has. So what they've done is they pay more on the front end, but then they freeze you at 20 years, and it really affects your retirement. They've taken your insurance away in retirement in order to try to get signing bonuses and more money up front. But you unfortunately, you at year 20, you go into basically a salary freeze, and at year 30 you don't have your retirement benefits that you used to have. But that was to front load to try to get people in. But people are smart, people are seeing that, and so that's something that you need to understand about compensation and benefits as well. They're for the young, and as you know, bringing in older teachers, a lot of them are moving out of state, going somewhere else, north to South Carolina, because of that front loading. It's not good. It's not a good thing. Leslie pointed out that a lot of schools drop the ball on 90-day intervention. Now, here's the thing. Intervention is not federal. Intervention is state and local. So that means the principal is responsible. Let me say that again. Intervention is state and local. The principal is responsible. It's not like EC, which is a federal program, and you have an EC director and an EC department chair and a compliance technician that's responsible if they don't keep IEPs up to date, or misdo their head count, or don't do all the things they're supposed to do. Not so with intervention. Intervention is just as involved as EC, and the principal is responsible for intervention. And if you drop the ball on it, the state considers intervention a school-based committee. That means that the principal is responsible. You're responsible for it. If you don't maintain your head counts, if you don't do the things you're supposed to do in intervention, you'll lose your job. You'll lose your house. Leanne pointed out that teachers are hired by the board and work for the system. They can be moved anywhere. That's what we're talking about, those 20-day totals. All of a sudden, some of those teachers you had were working for somebody else. Now you say, but I hired that teacher. I found her. She was great. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. They work for the board. They can move them anywhere. If your allotment sheet's not close, then you just lose them. Small pointed out allotment sheet. Said in her district, applicants must set up their account. I like that. Roger did a great job on his OMA task 1. If you want to see a good high school one, you need to look at Rogers. He's got it laid out very well, the way a high school would have it. It's different than elementary and middle. High school's different, and his is a really good example of that. Michelle had a good OMA as well. Hers, what I really liked about Michelle's was as how she laid out the audit for her federal programs, exceptional children, Title I, those things. Now, and you say to me, Dale, why we got to audit our federal programs in OMA Task 1? Which programs do we schedule first? Federal, right? We're supposed to know what we have and what they're supposed to get, so that we can make sure in our master schedule that we accommodate that. The better job you do auditing your federal programs, your special POPs, again, EC 504, Title I, AIG, English as second language, and CTE, the 6 of those, the better job you do auditing them and knowing what they're supposed to get, the better job you can do scheduling to meet the federal requirements. If not, they'll turn your money off and they'll demand that you send it back. So that's why it's so important to audit, what I call audit your federal programs. Know what you got and what the kids are supposed to get. That's what that's all about. Michelle did a great job with that. Thank you, Michelle. It was really good. Sparkle had a really good discussion board too on personnel, and made a good point. A couple of you made a point. That intent sheet that your principal has you sign, that's worth exactly nothing. Used to be people were people of their word. If they said I'm not coming back, or if I am coming back, they would stay with you at least till you could find somebody. That's not the case anymore. I don't know why we're still going through the ruse of having people do an intent sheet, because it's not legally binding. And too many principals get caught up in, I've heard that this person's leaving, but they said they were coming back on their intent sheet. You better listen to the rumor mill. You better keep your ear to the ground, and you better always have, be ready at any point to have to replace somebody. Too many principals get caught flat-footed. She swore to me she'd be back. You do realize she was pregnant. That was her first child. She's less than 29 years of age. What's the probability say? Only a 30% chance that she'll come back. If she took all of her leave before she had the baby, what's the probability she's going to come back? That'd be none. That would be none. If you get caught on that, that's on you. You weren't paying attention. You didn't understand probability. Probability is the basis of all inferential statistics. What are we doing in inferential statistics? We're trying to infer stuff. We're just guessing most of the time. When I teach 738, 736 statistics, that's what I do in the doctoral level. We call that the swag method. Well, what's a swag? A stupid, wild ass guess. But we try to put some numbers behind it to be better guessers. So the cut is 29. If a woman has a baby before she's 29, it's her first child, she's only 30% chance that she'll come back to work. Why? Because she's early in her career. She's not made very much status. She's not in a leadership, high-paying position. As expensive as childcare is, she'll more than likely stay home with the baby because it's about a push. It'll cost about as much to get daycare as she'll make working a job. Now, if a woman is over 29 years of age and she's made some status in her career and she's making more than a beginning salary, 70% chance she'll come back. Now, that's your starting point. Now, the next variable that you have to put in there is when do they take their leave? If they work up till, the time they have the baby where all their leave is after, they can stay home with the child for a few weeks, more than likely they'll come back. You have a 26-year-old first-time pregnant beginning teacher, still in that beginning phase, and she takes all of her time before the baby is born, so that she would basically have to have the baby and come back to work the next day because all of her days are used up. What's the probability she's coming back? That would be, well, the tails, the kurtosis, the tails of the normal distribution can never touch the x-axis, but they can get so close you can't blow smoke between them. What that means is she's not coming back. You got to know stuff like that. You got to be paying attention. Otherwise, you get caught flat-footed. And parents they don't have they have no sympathy for you if you get caught in a personnel situation. Everybody in the community knew she wasn't coming back. How come you didn't know? Well, because you weren't paying attention, or you didn't work the probability. That's the whole notion here. You got to be understanding that these things are fluid, and you got to have a plan B. Always be having a plan B. Roger had a very good discussion board too. His very logical in his layout. Lillian mentioned a weighted system. Nicole sat in on some interviews. That's great. And she talked to an AP. Wasn't it AP about interviewing as well? Nicole, tell us about your interview with your AP about doing job interviews. She's still muted. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Coleman, who is my AP and also my mentor, I have been able to sit in on 2 interviews.
Right.
Both were for science teachers. And Mr. Coleman has also held a principal position as well. So he's AP currently at West, but he was at a smaller school as the actual principal. And although he did follow the outline or the template that they have for interviewing, he still tried to feel the candidate out and would ask probing questions about scenarios and what would you do in certain situations, curriculum, their approach to curriculum. Trying to think what else he mentioned. Their approach to curriculum, and also just their ethics and values. So although he does go through the questions that are listed, he still takes it a step farther when he has the opportunity to elaborate and get a feel for the candidate. So he basically said, I always thought that skills were something that you kind of that you obtain, and it was an internal thing. He said you can teach skills, but you can't teach. Will and skills are 2 separate things. He's more worried about, yes.
Yeah. Now, it's a good idea to try to get people's dispositional behaviors. I'm on time. I'm responsible. That's what I talked to you all about. Those kinds of things. That's will. Now, here's the downside of that. is if you leave the script, you risk asking illegal questions and getting sued.
That's
So let
true.
me show you an example of what I'm talking about. So here was the latest interview that I was on. I'll share my screen. And so these were the questions. And so we asked these of every one of the candidates who came in for this professor position. And we already had who was going to ask each one. It's Dr. Sanders, Dr. Putnam, Dr. Stone, me, all these people. So this was a graduate faculty position. So we had all the graduate professors. We were on the committee. And so, you know, we asked these. Now you can ask follow-up questions to try to dig a little bit deeper. But the problem with that is that if you do that, you have to ask everybody those same follow-up questions. Everybody's interview must be the same according to the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission. And you have to be careful not to stray into illegal things. What are illegal things? I'm glad you asked. Let me show you. This is in your, this is under module 2 that we covered last week. I have added this. Legal and illegal interview questions right here. So marital status. Here's unlawful inquiries and lawful. Residence, pregnancy, physical health, family, name, photographs, age, education, citizenship, national origin, ancestry, race or color, religion, organizations, military, height and weight, arrests and convictions. These are all hotspot areas that you need to know that you need to be very careful if you're going to ask a question about any of those kinds of things. To Nicole's point, you should be asking dispositional kinds of things about their responsibility, about their knowledge, those kinds of things. That's where you can go off script, not on things like this. So I have added this to our shell under module 2 for human resources. But this is a good primer about the things you need to try to avoid, or if you don't, make sure that that you're asking the lawful one for the lawful purpose. I would avoid these no matter what. It's just like race or color. There are no lawful inquiries. Religion, there are none other than can you work Saturdays and Sundays? That has nothing to do with religion.
So the interview I sat in for was with my principal and my AP. And they both had a tendency to, once she asked a question on script, and depending on what she said, it would lead into something that they wanted her to basically elaborate on for a little deeper, him and her.
And so what you do is you have one person in there designated on the follow-up questions to write those down, so that the next candidate comes in, you ask the same follow-up questions of them. That one I was just on, Sydney was the one that had to do that in that particular one, so that you could ask them. And then at the end, you say, did anybody, here's the things that I heard that we didn't have written down. Anybody have catch anything else? So we have to make sure we ask the next candidate these questions. Now, the problem with that is what if you've already had one in that you didn't ask those questions? So what you make sure that you tell people, if you're going to go off script with the first one. Don't wait till the last one to go off script.
Both interviews totally led down 2 different roads.
Yeah. You're setting yourself up to lose your house. Got to be careful of that. Now, let me give you another scenario here in interviewing. I sat in on an interview, not that one, but I sat in on an interview fairly recently where it was very clear that the applicant, somebody had given her the list of questions that she was going to be asked, because she was a favorite of some of the people on the committee. So they made sure she knew what questions she was going to be asked. It was real clear. She was already spewing the answers out to fairly sophisticated and in-depth questions before you could even get the question out. And there was a person in there who, after about 2 or 3 times of that, got angry and went off script. And then it becomes a battle between the people on the interviewing committee. And he started asking questions that were not on there. And of course, that angered the people in there, because their candidate, when he started asking questions that weren't on the script, the candidate was looking at her like, well, that wasn't on the things you sent me. Like, could you be a little, not a good poker player, didn't have a good poker face. And we got into that. You need to, you as the principal of the school who set these interviews up and have these people that you invite in, need to say, don't go off the script. If you do, this will be your first and last time. Don't go off in any way. And number 2, these questions are not to be disseminated to the candidates. And the way that you do that is, when I run one of these, I have them printed out when people come in on the interview committee and form around the table, and we bring the applicant in. Then and only then do I pass out the questions. That way they can't have given them. I don't have to say don't send these to the candidate, because that would insult people. I just don't, that they don't have any opportunity to do that. That's a couple of tricks.
Do you collect them at the end? Do you collect them after the fact?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's what we're going to ask. Now, the way that I set these up is I have all 3 of them come in the same day, so they can't get back to the computer and email them to their friend right quick. We do them back to back to back. They have no opportunity to do that. It's your responsibility to run a clean process here, because if it goes wrong, it's going to be you. It's your response. If you want to bring teachers in, if you want to bring parents in, if you want to bring your AP in, that's marvelous. But understand that the responsibility to follow the law on hiring on your part, the interview piece, is still on you. Just like it's your responsibility. You can assign assistant principals to do, to do the references. But again, if they get busy and don't do them and tell you, yeah, I talked to them, everything was fine, and they weren't fine, that comes back to you. Principal is responsible for this, the carrying out due process at the school level, period. I would not disseminate the questions early. I would tell people, don't think, just read the question. Don't do follow-ups. Don't do other things. I was in another interview for another position across campus fairly recently, and the faculty got mad at me because I asked questions, and I said, this is not an interview. This is a lesson plan. This person was asked to come in and do a lesson for whatever reason. I have no idea why. I'm acknowledged as one of the 3 top instructors at Gardner Webb. I don't have any idea why. I'm not saying I am. I just am acknowledged as. And so I have to sit on committees all the time when people come to teach. I'm asked to evaluate their teaching. And so I was asking follow-up questions, and one of the faculty from that college got mad at me because, what is all these questions? And I was like, you wanted me to adjudicate their teaching ability? I'm just asking these are not interview questions. But that was her candidate, and she wanted her to get the job. She couldn't teach a lick. I'm not sure she could spell teach. So I was just asking some general teaching kind of questions. I'm not the best, but I've been in this business 46 years. I know a little something just from, if I can remember it, I know a little something. And so I was asking follow-up questions that you would ask any teacher. Oh no, you can't be asking her follow-up questions. Well, whoever made this lesson plan for her, she couldn't deliver it, and wasn't any good at it. That was easy to see. That now she might be a good researcher, but she couldn't teach a lick, not even a little bit. And so understanding there's politics that go along with this stuff, and people will try to put their thumb on the scale. Your job is to make sure that doesn't happen, because if it comes to light that there was a thumb on the scale, it always circles back to you and your home. You got to understand that. You're the one who has to make sure that both substantive and procedural due process in human resources hiring is upheld at your building, period. It's your responsibility. You can't allow people to put their thumb on the scale. We had some people who are working ahead, and here are some things that I picked up from a couple of the other discussion boards. Bill mentioned intent letter again. It's not worth the paper it's written on. Small pointed out, Skeeta pointed out that parents are as knowledgeable as school people are on EC now, and we're going to go over that a little bit later. They have their own website, they have their own resources. They know more than you do sometimes. You got to keep up yourself just to keep up with what the parents know. That's a good point. Many of them are highly knowledgeable now. That's on our next, that was on DB3 that coming up this week. And let's see, Sparkle asked about peer reviewing. Don't wait on anybody. If you need to do it, go ahead, pick somebody else. Don't ever wait on anybody. And then we had several on discussion board 4. Oh, Kristen, is Kristen with us tonight? Kristen's already finished all of her discussion boards. She's done all 6. So she's the discussion board star. Roger's our star this week on doing high school star on OMA. Let's see, Robin's already in OMA task force, so she's out. She's leading the group on that one. I see her down in the corner there. Moving on to the cyberbullying one. We're going to talk about that in a few weeks when we get to our discipline one, but I do want to say this up front. On cyberbullying, bullying of any kind, because of the number of kids, unfortunately, that have committed suicide lately, you better understand cyberbullying. So I had one who said she would check to see if a parent's report fell under the policy. If they came and reported to you, it falls under your policy. It doesn't have to have. It doesn't matter where it happened, what machine they used, it didn't come from one of our computers. It doesn't matter. Well, that happened over. It doesn't matter if it happened over the weekend. If it disrupts the educational environment, you have to deal with it. And if a parent comes in and makes a report to you, that means your educational environment has been disrupted. You don't have to calculate, do I have to handle this or not? The answer is yes. There's this notion out there that, oh, cyberbullying was repealed. No, one of the subsections was repealed, and it was on the Twitter war or TikTok battle deal. If Sparkle and I get into a Twitter battle and she starts winning, I can't claim that I'm being bullied or harassed because I was involved with it and I just started losing. Other than that, cyberbullying law is still in place. If your environment has been affected, you have to deal with it. Now, what is your first move? Your first move is to law enforcement, period. Because it's criminal. Sparkle, you got a question before I go to the law here?
Yeah, I have a question. So our counselor brought a situation yesterday, and I need to know if this is the principal responsibility. But basically, a month ago, now she just launched yesterday, a child reported that her brother was touching her and doing sexual
Oh, Lord.
activities.
A month ago, and she's sat on it for a month.
Yes, and so
she used to be my counselor.
Exactly. Well, that's another story because I would have been finer. But now that the principal knows, is it the principal's job to make the report?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You are under the law what's known as a responsible person. If somebody makes a report to you, you have to report it to social services immediately, and law enforcement and social services immediately. Doesn't matter when it happened or if it's third party. If somebody comes and tells you, you have to report it, period. You go to law enforcement first, and then you go to social services because it is a crime. Thank you, Sparkle. Let me show you the difference. Let me show you 2 things. Let me share my screen. This is good stuff. All right. And you say, well, these say the same things, Dale. They do not say the same things. All right, so let's look at 115, 288G. And B. Okay, so here's the first one. To make accurate reports to the superintendent and local board. Now let's look at G. We still report to the superintendent, same as this one. What's the difference in these two? This one is civil. This is something bad happened at your building. This is a crime is alleged to have occurred. See right here, and it talks about crime. If it's a criminal offense, you go, who do you call first? Superintendent or law enforcement if it's a crime? It's very clear in the law. You call law enforcement first. I can't tell you on this one, if something bad happens, like we were talking about with the case study for next week, where a teacher tries to do something bad to a kid, it's a violation of the law, but it's not criminal, it's civil law. We call the superintendent in that case, and that's what the principal did. He did exactly the right thing. But if it's a criminal act, you call law enforcement first. Call the law. I can't tell you the number of times I'd get a call. I'm the deputy. I'm the superintendent's designee. I'd get a call. Dale, this happened at the school. Did you call the law? No. Well, don't call me. Hang up and call the law. That's what the law says. We can't be seen as trying to handle it in-house or cover it up or stand around and think about it, or maybe it'll go away, or if we don't talk about it, nobody will find out. Your first move when you get a report of a criminal activity is you must call the law, period. No, but no, there's no but, there's no caveat. You call the law. Hopefully you've got a good working relationship with your school resource officer. If not, you've got the number of the local precinct or the one at the local school, but you got to involve them. And if they say, we'll let you investigate them, but you are not qualified to do investigations, especially of a criminal or sexual nature. And they also, and the good thing about them is they have warrant powers, power of subpoena, warrant, can get search warrants you don't have. A lot of this stuff is social media stuff's on telephones. You can't make a kid, open your phone, open his phone. That has to be subpoenaed. I'm at the little house tonight. I'm not at the big house. Big house is in the Lake Norman community, the northern part of Mecklenburg County. Cornelius Davidson. High school, middle school. Huff is the high school. Bailey Road is the middle school. AP that I had trained in Charlotte saw kids, all around the phone in the high school, went over and got the phone, got the resource officer. They got a warrant, opened the phone and found naked pictures of middle school age girls. And he was using them to blackmail these underage girls, 12, 13, 14 years old, to have sex with them. He was 18 years old. I hope there's a corner of hell hotter than the rest that they put him in. I really do. I hope there's a hotter corner of hell for him. But thankfully, that AP understood the process. He confiscated the phone immediately, got law enforcement, turned the phone over to them. They got the warrants before the kid could delete and do all that. That kid's serving 15 years in federal pen now. That absolutely happened, folks. That's what we're talking about. Oh, we'll just handle that in-house. No, there is no handle it in-house. What that means is the cover-up has started. You get law enforcement to start with, because they'll throw you under the bus if you mess up their investigation. Principal at North Meck was a nice older man, and I can say that because I'm an older man. He was the interim there. He was been in principal in another part of the county, really affluent school. And he was over in the central office, and they wanted him to do an interim. He's getting ready to retire, and he went to North Meck. Parent came in and said, my child has been sexually assaulted. Girl was 16 years old, and they said, age of consent in North Carolina is 16. She willfully had sex with these two boys, and so nothing to see here. Mother went to the local police, Huntersville. They went on the news. Chief of police said, we're quite sure a crime was committed, but they conducted an investigation of their own without us and kept us out of it. We're quite sure that they have destroyed any evidence that we would have. And we said, we know a crime has occurred, but we can't pursue it. That ended the principal and all the APs at that school. I had to let them go. Now, age of consent in North Carolina is 16, unless anybody know the law? We're going to learn it in a couple of weeks. It's in the back of that manual. I told you, that handy Daniel discipline data manual. That's your Bible that tells you everything. It says the age of consent is 16 in North and South Carolina, unless you're mentally incapacitated. Kid was self-contained EC. Did she have the ability to consent at any age? Not according to the law. Well, she was willing participant. She can't consent. She's mentally handicapped. If you have sex with her, that's a crime. You need to tell the police. They didn't want to tell the police. They all had to go home. You better know the law. You better get involved with law enforcement immediately. I don't care, bullying, cyberbullying, reports of sexual harassment, call the law. Well, we're not sure. Sexual harassment is a crime, and just as soon as we find out there was any physical contact of any kind, it goes from sexual harassment to sexual assault. All of a sudden, you're in trouble. You started an investigation. Now you find out, this is criminal. I'm in over my head. I don't have any subpoena power. I don't have any arrest power. I can't, anything that comes in that's sexual or criminal, you get a report, you call law enforcement immediately. All right, Nicole, your question?
I'm not sure if it applies in North Carolina. In South Carolina, we do vector training for all of the teachers and staff. Do y'all do that in North Carolina? And the question is, will the teacher be the liability if teachers and staff don't complete the modules by the end of the year? I know they remind us of reporting and procedures, but does that have any effect on liability for the teacher or the staff members?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think I've got something that popped up on my email this week about training that I've got to go to. I go through Clarity. I go through every training, everything that it got at Gardner Webb, I go through because because if you are a department head, a program coordinator, or a department head, and I'm both, you are what is known as a responsible person. And so you got to make sure you keep your training up to date. And you got to make sure that you follow through on all the things that you do. And if you willingly don't complete your training, you are leaving the insurance and legal aid and the insurance of your district will not cover you. You are on your own. If you choose not to report and it becomes an issue and the district gets sued, you will have to stand trial separately from the district. They will split off from you. They will not cover you. Let me say that again. They will not cover you. Their insurance and legal aid will not cover you if you did not do your required training. So you better understand that. You may lose your freedom and your house. Leanne, you got a question from Chase Middle School question?
Well, it's not from Chase. It's actually from Turning Point in Shelby. I had
Yeah.
a situation where a student was being sexually assaulted, and the person she confided in reported it, and they reported it immediately. Then my question is, how do you protect your staff? Because the police came in and ended up questioning all the staff, trying to point fingers at everyone like we knew this was going on for a long period of time. They even threatened us to the point superintendent's not going to have your back. You're going to go down before he does, all these things, because they were looking to try to prosecute, but they wanted to find a staff member to lay claim on.
Yeah. You know, but that's part of that relationship building with the police and with your school resource officer. I'm betting this is not the first time that there'd been an interaction between the two. And if you treat them badly, they'll burn your house down. They will. The police are. I had 2 resource officers in Charlotte that I really loved. I had some I didn't love. I worked with 2 that were great. They were completely opposites. One was an older African-American man, one was a young white man, but they were both wonderful. I worked with a couple of different lady SROs. They were good as well. If you develop a relationship with them and treat them decently, then things like that don't happen. But when you treat them like the hired help, or expect them to do your job for you, do discipline for kids, and treat them less than, they will absolutely beat you to death. You've got to build that relationship with your SRO. Thank you, Leanne, for that. That's exactly what happens when you have an adversarial relationship with the police in your district, or your resource officer who is a representative of that police, understanding that SROs don't work for the school district. They are policemen. They are part of a precinct or a division or a police department. And if you treat them badly, when things don't go well at your school, you'll get payback. That's exactly what will happen. But yes, but but you're still in, you still got to tell it as soon as you know it. You build a relationship with them, but sometimes it's not going to be pleasant. When crimes have occurred, sometimes it's not going to be pleasant. And that's why a lot people say, well, why won't folks call law enforcement? Well, it's not going to be pleasant. The PR may be bad. They may get treated roughly. It may not go well, but you're trying to keep from, what would you rather have? Your feelings hurt or lose your house? This is grown people stuff. It gets ugly sometimes. But the better relationship you have with your SRO, the less ugly it will be for you. But on cyberbullying, that's the biggest. That's by far and away the most frequent occurrence of bullying now is cyberbullying. And in 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to show you how prescient I am. I have to be careful not to sprain a shoulder patting myself on the back. I'm going to show you a presentation that I did from 2011, where I predicted what was going to happen in the next decade or so in schools in terms of what was going to be the big issues. I'm still amazed that I was that smart. But the truth is, I hired a criminologist and we ran the numbers and we knew where we were headed. But social media, technology, cyberbullying is 95% of bullying now. Kids are too busy kids are too disinterested to face-to-face bully anymore. They do it online. And so that's the one that you've got to make sure you get law enforcement. And yes, if it comes to you and is reported to you, then yes, you have to deal with it. It doesn't matter anything else. If it comes to you, then yes, you must. It is within your purview. You must deal with it. That is the law. And we'll read the cyberbullying law when we get there. All right, I think that's pretty much everything that I saw this week that caught my eye. Good job on everybody. You're on your honor to keep your pacing up and make sure you get everything turned in. There is no late, but don't get behind. All right, let's talk about EC 504 for a while. EC for a while tonight. So let me share my screen, and I'm going to go through some of these things. You know me, I don't like to sit and just read stuff. We've covered that. All right. So if we look at what's under our content, so your task this week, let me move that out of the way. Let me move that from that side. Interview the chair of your school's intervention team. That'd be SST, MTSS, whatever. This is the school-based committee that receives referral from teachers concerning students who are having academic or behavior problems. Outline the official 90-day process that students go through prior to EC testing decision. And is your school doing a 3-tier intervention of 90 before the 90? So intervention is 90 before the 90. Intervention is the 90 before the 90. Are you doing the 3 tiers of 30 days before you start the 90 for an EC testing decision? Are you doing that? You're required by law now to do the interventions before you even start the 90 official 90 days to make a EC testing decision at the end of that 90. So it's really now pretty much a whole school year, 180 days, that a kid would go through the 90 in intervention, and if that wasn't working, they would go through the 90 of EC identification. At the end of that 180 days, you'd make a decision where that kid's going to be tested for EC. In 2014, 11 principals were either dismissed or demoted in Charlotte-Mecklenburg a week before school started. Let me say that again. In 2014, you can Google it and still find it. 11 principals, elementary principals, were either demoted or let go prior to the first week of school in August. Why? Well, it was real simple. They were, kids were being referred for EC, and not only were they not, and within a week or two, they were being tested. There was no 30-day, no 60-day, no 90, no intervention, no nothing. They were referred one week and tested the next. Problem was they were all African-American males. That became, they were just trying to get them off the roll so they wouldn't have to count against their test scores. It was racially identifiable and gender. And so the notion here is there is a 90-day process of intervention. Again, as I started tonight, principal is responsible for that 90 days of intervention. Maintain the head count, make sure they're getting that scripted lesson, that reteach, the whole deal. Principal's responsible for that. EC takes over at the end of that 90. If you're not successful, they're responsible to make sure that the next 90 happens the way it's supposed to happen. And at the end of that 90, we get a testing decision where this kid's going to be tested for exceptional children and then placed or not. IDEA, let me go to that one. If you don't know IDEA, here's the website to it. Individuals Disabilities Education Act. It talks all about what kids are supposed to get. If you don't know, this is your website. Now, along with that, you've got to understand parents know more than you do. Here's their resource center that has everything in the world, has all the links. This stuff, parental rights under IDEA, parent participation, key terms to know, 10 basic steps, special education services for preschoolers with disabilities, all about the IEP. They've got everything. Parents know more than you do. If I were you, I'd read the Cliff's Notes. I'd go to their site and read all the stuff and know what they know. This is a very concise one. Again, the links there. But if you don't know anything about EC, you better read these sites. And then finally, the link to the FERPA site. And this is the Privacy Act. Now, if Dr. Sane were here with us tonight, he would talk about, I don't know if his lawsuit's been settled. He's been in an EC lawsuit for 5 years. He doesn't even work in public schools anymore. He's been in an EC lawsuit. And he's being sued as a part because 2 teachers were standing in the hallway talking about an EC kid, and a third teacher overheard them and told the parent, who was a friend of hers. And now the whole school, including the principal, is being sued in Lincoln County. FERPA laws, we don't talk about EC kids ever. I walked into a public separate school. I was doing an audit of a public separate school in Charlotte, and I could hear the teacher assistants in the lounge, which was open to was open to the reception area of the school, talking about kids sitting in the lounge, and you could overhear them. No, we don't talk about these kids ever. We don't disclose any information about them. We don't talk about them. One of the things that we get into is the standing. Heather and I are having an IEP meeting today, and she's the LEA rep, and I'm the EC teacher. And Brenda is the core academic teacher that we've asked to be there today because she teaches the kid. She's already left for the day. You know, she had a hot date. She hot-footed it out. She beat the buses out of the parking lot. And so I see Terrence come stumbling down the hall. You know, me and Terrence are, you know, brothers from different mothers. And so I call him over and say, hey, Terrence, we need a fill in here. Will you come in and sit in on this IEP meeting with us? And Terrence says, well, I don't teach, Johnny. You're a core ed teacher. It don't matter. Come on in, sit down. They don't know the difference. Is that legal? Heather, you're the LEA rep. You're the one that's directing traffic on this thing over here. You know, one person, usually assistant principal or the principal, is designated as the LEA. That's local education agency. That means the district that you work for, like Guilford County Schools. That would be the LEA. One person is the LEA rep. The LEA rep is the person that directs traffic. That says, yeah, we got the group we need and let's go, or no, we don't, or is everything in place? They're the one that basically directs the traffic for the meeting. So Heather, is it, since Brenda's not there and I'm the, you know, but Terrence is handy, can I bring Terrence in? So because I'm the EC teacher that did all this paperwork and I've got his IEP ready and I've got all this plan laid out, and I don't want to postpone this meeting now because I got all this stuff ready. But Brenda, his core academic teacher, is not here. But Terrence is a core academic teacher, same grade level. Now he doesn't teach Johnny, but he's a core academic. Can we substitute Terrence for Brenda and run our IEP meeting because the parents here? Can we do that, Heather?
Technically, you can, because he does do the same grade level. He's there just to provide information on that grade level academics.
Yeah, but can he set in? Does he have standing to set in on the IEP and make any decisions or input into that?
He cannot make any of the decisions. That would come down to the LEA and then the EC teacher at that point.
Yep. So he can set in for only a limited. He can't take Brenda's place. All right. Robin's coming down the hall. She doesn't teach the same grade level, but she's a core academic teacher. Can we bring her in? No, can't bring her in. Now, here's the problem. People kind of stretch that first scenario that I had. They kind of stretch it to cover that. It's clear. It's clear. You can't stretch that scenario. So here's my advice, and this is Dr. Sain's advice, who's being sued right now, by the way. So he's an expert. That's what he's doing now. He's working for a company on intervention and EC all over the United States of America for curriculum associates, making big money. Now, what he would say to you is just don't do it. Cancel. It's not against the rules to cancel. Don't get into a situation where there's going to be a lawsuit and you're going to have to argue before the court that it was okay to bring Terrence in. When he doesn't have standing, he doesn't teach that kid, although technically allowable. It might not be when you go to court. Definitely, it's not going to be allowable to bring somebody in who is not in the same grade level and doesn't do the same thing. It's definitely not allowable. But the deal is as Josh Sain would say, who is as knowledgeable about this as anybody in the world, just don't do it. It's not against the rules to cancel. Don't bring people in who don't have standing in an EC, in an IEP. If they don't teach that kid, the rule of thumb is don't bring them in the room because it violates FERPA. All right, Michelle?
Okay, so my question is if you have an adaptive classroom in your school and the child is like assigned to your grade level, are you allowed to be pulled into that meeting for that? And you don't teach the kid at all because
When
they're
you say
adaptive.
explain adaptive to me. Your definition might be different. Are you talking about
Self-contained.
Oh, you're talking about self-contained?
Yes.
Absolutely, I wouldn't on self-contained.
Okay.
I would not on self-contained.
Because they have to have a grade level representative there.
But that grade level representative should be the one that's designated to be that person. If they're designated to be that person, then that's the person. If they're just somebody else who's on that grade level and they're not the designee, then no. One person should be designated from that grade level to be that person that sits on the IEP. Yes, that person has standing. They're the person designated to be on that IEP team. If they are not the person designated, then no, you can't substitute. We get in trouble when we start substituting. There's rules on. So here's what Josh would tell you. Don't substitute. Don't take the risk. All this stuff is debatable in court. You might think that it's perfectly normal or allowable, but when you go to court, it doesn't work like you think court does. You're on the defensive when you go there. And unless it absolutely has their name on the list that says this is the person that sits in for the grade level, unless it says they are the person, don't substitute. I wouldn't substitute Terrence, although we're brothers. I wouldn't do that because he doesn't actually teach that kid. He doesn't teach Johnny. I wouldn't take that risk. You just you never know when you go to court with EC what's going to happen. I've been 1,000 times, unfortunately.
So as long as our name is on that list.
Yeah, as long as your name's
Okay.
on the list, you're good to go. But if your name's not, I'm telling you now, as somebody who's wore the seat out in the courtroom on 4th Street in Charlotte, because I had to go for all the ones against the district. When I was in the central office, that was one of my jobs. A couple of years when I was in that role, I was over there. Good thing you could walk through the back of the Ed Center through Marshall Park over to 4th Street. I didn't have to park. I wore a path through the grass, walking back and forth. I had a place. I sat in that same seat in the courtroom so long it was the shape of my behind, looked like a tractor seat. I sat there so many times, and I can tell you, it never goes like you think it's going to go. Don't substitute people. If they don't have standing, that means if they're not on the list, they don't come in the door. As LEA rep, you better be the person you are the gatekeeper. You better know that. Don't take the risk. You'll lose your house. It never goes like you think it's going to go. You say, well, Dale, you're belaboring this point. This is the most common mistake you can make, letting somebody in that you shouldn't let in as a new LEA person. That you know not to promise things you can't deliver. You ought to be scripting what's going on, but you can pause. If you get a question you don't know, we're going to take a break. Or if you don't have the people you're supposed to have, we're going to postpone. It's better to do nothing than do the wrong thing. That's what I'm trying to get you to understanding. That's the first thing you got to understand about exceptional children. It's better to do nothing, to pause, wait, find out, get the right people than just to bluster on through. That's the worst thing you can do. Becca, you got a question?
Yes, so I've sat a couple times on homeschooled IEPs as just, as a classroom teacher and as a coach. So how is that different then? Because I don't know anything about those people.
But homeschool, that's not a specific team. That's broader in definition. That kid's not in your building, so anybody he doesn't have a core group of teachers that come in contact with him every day. I've had, as a principal, I had a homeschool. Lonnie, he broke the nicest watch I ever had. He broke my watch. I never will forget that. And so yeah, when they're on homeschool, you can send whoever you got. Like if you send a teacher by and they drop in work off, or some of them go by and do a lesson, you can send anybody you got when they're on homeschool. That's appropriate. Now, I'm not saying you send the custodian or the PE teacher to teach them math, but you can send any of your math teachers. That's one of the caveats, but otherwise it's just, it's too cumbersome for the school if it can just be one person. So a homeschool is different than if they're physically on your campus. That's kind of the caveat on that one. But now here's the thing. I wouldn't send a different person every week. I'd send the same person. Because parents will argue and want to sue you over that, not being consistent. That's not fair to the teachers that they get caught up in that. And always, well, the other teacher did this. Why ain't you doing that? You need to send the same group, and they need to be able to know what's going on. Don't send whoever random that you got. Make sure that you designate so you kind of everybody has a baseline of knowledge. But yeah, there's so many different exceptionalities. There's so many different things, so many different rules. You know, as an LEA person, if it's not your standard specific learning disability, and you don't know what they're supposed to get, you better talk to your EC people and find out. All right, what's the rules on this one? Who can I let in? How can we service this kid? Is there something I need to know? This one's different than something I've had before. You better find out. You better be scripting those IAP meetings, and you meet with the EC people and say, here's what I saw in this meeting. What could I have done differently? Where have I made a mistake? Where have I erred on this? Is there anything that I should have done that I didn't do here? Until you can get up to speed, you better be scripting those things and then talking with people about what you've done, could have done different, better, or whatever. And hopefully you don't make a fatal mistake in the first few until you get your feet on the ground doing these things. Melissa, you got a question?
Not so much a question. I was just going to share a couple experiences I had as a testing coordinator, especially in Charlotte, and a little bit here in Beaufort. Like, I had to be in all the IEPs and 504 meetings because those accommodations have to go through me and make sure that I have them and that I'm approving them and that they match for that child's IEP, because there are some times where people give like these accommodations that just honestly, like, we don't have the manpower or the people in order to address them. So you have to say, like, nope, I can't do that. This is what I offer. I offer a group of 6 or a group of 12. I don't offer 8 or 4 or 6 or 15. These are my 2. So which one would you rather have?
There you go.
So making sure they do. Then I'm an IEP mom, and my son was having some problems in his school here, where they were violating his IEP and didn't expect anybody to say anything about it.
Yeah.
And when I did, we had to call a meeting and we went back and forth for a while. So I brought an advocate with me. And when we came into the meeting, it was his science teacher, who's the head of the grade level. She came in the meeting, but his accommodations, she teaches differently. She does a lot of stuff where she's accommodating naturally, and science kind of allowed it, but she didn't have issues with him in her classroom, or he wasn't struggling in her classroom. So we wanted the English teacher there because that's where his accommodations were. And so we were very quick to say, like, we can cancel and reschedule if you need to get the English teacher here, because that's who needed to be sitting here, not the science teacher, just because she was the team lead.
That's exactly right. And if they hadn't insisted to do that, you could have sued them and won. Absolutely. That's it's exactly what we're talking about. If that person's just sitting there like a knot on the log and doesn't have anything that they can contribute, they don't have standing, they don't know anything about the kid, and the parent says, but this person does and has standing because they teach my child. If you bring Terrence in when you were supposed to have Brenda, the parent can sue you and they will win. I'm telling you right now, they will win.
Yeah, and the second part is that you also have to be able to
showing that example.
You have to be able to back up what you say. The teacher was like, well, I do vocabulary with him. Well, how do you do vocabulary with him? And she's like, I just do it with him like I do everybody else. Well, show us. Show us your lesson. Where's your lesson at? Where's the last lesson? Bring us, Henry's books. And when she couldn't do that, they knew that they were done. I was able to get a transfer through the district because we documented all that, ended the meeting, contacted my district representative, and they were able to transfer him.
Yes. Parents and kids have rights, folks. Since 1969, they have due process. Since 1975, PL 94-142, they have rights. They know their rights. I told you, parents know more than you do. Melissa just, I need to carry Melissa around with me. I'll just let her tell all the stuff I'm supposed to tell you. Parents know more than you do. They know what the rules are. So I said I wouldn't substitute anybody, because as soon as you do, parents going to catch you. Yeah, you might be able to legally, but when they can't provide the information that the parent asked for, all of a sudden that good idea just flew right out the window. They're going to sue you and you're going to lose. You brought the village idiot into the meeting. That does not go well. That's exactly what the judge will say to you in court. They'll talk ugly to you in court too, by the way. I mean ugly. They'll call you names, and not only will they find you, for the parent and the kid, they'll talk really bad to you too, and they'll find you a lot of money. It's really, now Melissa, having worked in Charlotte, can tell you they'll wear you out in court. Lou Trosh would just absolutely beat you senseless. When he got done with you, you bleeding inside your clothes. So you better understand this. I wouldn't substitute anybody. The people that are supposed to be there, if I couldn't have them there, I would cancel. But I wouldn't try to bluff or substitute or have somebody that we were trying to get by with, because as soon as you do, the parent will call you out. They know. It's not worth it. It's not worth that little bit of, we'll get this knocked out to try to deceive them or to bluff them, because again, they know the same things that you know. No, your job is to follow law and policy. You better know it. You better know, as the LEA rep, you better know it. And you can always postpone. You can always meet at another time. Don't try to bluster and buffalo and bluff your way through it. This is not a poker game, folks. Your house is, if you're gambling your house. Small, you got one?
Yeah, we're experiencing a situation now where the EC teacher had went out for a particular student. This student received services in her classroom, so he's designated to be in there. When she went out for surgery, she sent just one of the regular 6th grade teachers an email and said that he would be sitting in her ELA class because it would be easier while she was gone, instead of being in there with a long-term substitute. So the ELA teacher said she didn't know what was going on. So he was in there for a little while. And then when the EC teacher got back, she asked when he was going to be able to return, because she doesn't service him on what he's supposed to be serviced on, and she doesn't want to get in trouble. Well, she told her, since she had already been doing it, they were just going to keep him in the classroom. Well, she went to the principal, and now the EC teacher is under investigation because he said under no circumstances should that child have been taken out of his current classroom and environment where he was receiving his services and just placed into a general ed classroom.
That's a change
because
of
it was
placement.
easier.
That's a change of placement. And people say, well, but we didn't suspend him, or he was, butt and seat rule, folks. It's a little crass. Butt and seat rule. If that kid's butt is not in his regular seat, that's a change of placement. That's illegal without having an IEP meeting to change that child's placement. Butt in seat. The principal's exactly right. You can't just shove him off to somebody else's room. If he's not sitting in his seat today, that's a change of placement, which requires a change in the IEP. I wouldn't even have him sit in a different seat in the same room. I'd be afraid of that. You might lose that one in court.
There have been no changes to his IEP.
That's what I'm talking about. Oh my Lord. This is you're just volunteering to give up your house. You don't want to live inside. You want to live outside. It's amazing. I can't believe people would be that dumb, but they are. You need to know the law. If that kid is not sitting in his seat, the same seat he sits in every day, regardless of what services you're getting him, if he's not sitting in that same seat he sits in every day, that constitutes a change in placement. And you can go to court and argue all you want to, but it won't do you any good. It's narrowly defined. Brenda, you got one?
Yes, sir. I know since working on our hours and doing different things, taking different roles, one of the things that's been annoying me is going through and learning more of review of accommodations and understanding it more clearly. Some teachers wait until the last minute and decide they don't want the students pulled out. So one of the things that I did was we had a meeting, and we had to meet with all the teachers, and I had to break it down. I'm like, hey, Brenda's review of accommodation says this. the day of the testing, you can't say, oh, he's going to stay with me. You can't tell the teacher who's pulling her out, oh, he's going to stay with me because he tests better with me. You wait to the end of the year. There's a process for everything. You wouldn't want your baby done that way. And it's kind of like they're so frustrated with the rules that were set for their students that they wanted to start with. So that's another avenue that I'm learning. And it's so simple to me because I don't want to lose my house. I mean, I don't
No.
want to get in trouble. But
No.
as an educator, we should know these things. And you just can't say, oh, they're going to stay with me for math because he does better with math. And I'm like, no. So it's been a whole little thing this at the end of this school year with that. And teachers weren't happy, but I'm like, this is what it is. This is what it's going to be. And we're not changing it.
That's right. Now, what
Mhm.
Brenda has just described to you a lot more eloquently than I can because she lives it every day is this notion that you hear me ranting about and beating my hands on the table every week about we have to run school for kids, not for the adults that work there. This is another example of that. And this is why. Because if you run school for the adults that work there, they'll do what's convenient and best and easiest for them, not for somebody's child. And it's like Brenda said, that was your child. Would you want them treated that way? But also they don't care about the law. I'm gonna do what's easy for me. Well, you as the administrator are going to get sued and lose your house. They probably don't have a house to lose. And so you can't run school for the convenience of teachers. Schedule wise, nothing. I mean, we love you, teachers. We're gonna do everything we can for you, but we can't run school for you because you don't make the best decisions, make the best legal decisions. Melissa, what were you just? I saw that chat go by. What was that when you wanted to contribute on that?
I just said that I also do like medical homebound, which are scholars who are out for medical reasons.
Right.
Sometimes it's anxiety, depression, but if they have an IEP, it's called home based. And I have to make sure that not only do they have their medical homebound, which is a teacher that meets with them,
Yeah.
but I also have to coordinate with their IEP caseworker to have service hours, which is different. So you have to be watching all of those all the
Yes.
time.
Exactly. There's more to this than just running an IEP meeting is what Melissa and Brenda are talking about. We don't have, it would take us months to explore all this, but understanding the entree for beginning assistant principal is to be the LEA rep, but it goes a lot deeper than that. There's a lot more things that you have to know. There's a lot more facets to this than just having an IEP meeting every now and then. But see, a lot of teachers think that's all there is. That's all they know. They think that exceptional children is just about having an IEP meeting and that there are other rules that go with exceptional children, IDEA and FAPE, free and appropriate education, but there are. Your job is to know all these different facets. You start as a LEA rep. And again, I recommend that you script those meetings. You talk with people. How am I doing? What did I miss? What should I have done differently? And that's why I said, as you might could figure this out later on, but as a beginning LEA rep, I would not allow any substitutions. I don't care if it's allowable or not. It won't be allowable if you go to court, maybe. I wouldn't allow any substitutions. And Melissa gave you the perfect example. Why? They crucified that crowd. They tried to slip somebody else in. Parent knows what they're doing. That will not go well for you. No substitutions when you're early on as an LEA rep. Whoever's is on the list, that better be who you let in the door. And if that person isn't handy, you don't grab Terrence going down the hall. Terrence is like me. He's slow moving, so you can catch him. So we don't do that. That's not good. That's not a best practice. As you get more experienced in this, you may figure some of these things out, but early on, you better go by the book and you better be safer than sorry. You start out your career as an administrator working as a LEA rep, and then you add more and more knowledge to that. And you understand that you may have to bring in the testing. Again, you don't be promising things you can't deliver, services that you don't have or that your district doesn't offer. That's when somebody asks you for something. If that testing coordinator is not there, you say, I'll have to pause and find out on that. I can't make that decision. I don't know enough. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. Now, we're not having this class for the experienced people. This is for emerging administrators, your first role as an LEA rep. We're going to be safer than sorry. We're going to do baby steps. We're going to make sure that we script, that we ask. We don't allow anybody in that's not on the list. We're going to, and people will say, well, you just don't, you don't know what you're doing. We could have had that meeting. No, I don't know. That's why we didn't have that meeting. But I'll be here tomorrow and I'll get my check at the end of the month. Because this stuff is way involved. And you got to start somewhere. This is the entree is LEA rep. Dr. Sain, and I'm looking at our time. Dr. Sain has put together an absolute killer PowerPoint for you. And let me share my screen again. You know I don't sit and read PowerPoints. Y'all are grown. Y'all can do that. So here's the FERPA website. You better dig into this. You better dig into that parent website. But here is this one. We're going to use this one a lot for your last case study, inclusion versus mainstreaming. A lot of people have gone to inclusion. If you don't know what inclusion is, where the teacher goes to the room, where you don't do any pull-outs with EC, the teacher we push the teacher in. If you don't know that, you need to make sure you review this, because we're going to use this a lot for your last case study. Inclusion is moving adults, not kids. If you don't know that, here's a really good, and that's a long one, but it's a really good one. And then the one that you better read is this one. This is for, again, LEA rep level AP, first time administrators. This is your Bible. This one's 27 slides long. It's gold. We could sell this for $1 million. This is absolutely the best one I've ever seen. Goes right through FAPE, child find, what I was talking about earlier, everything, least restrictive environment. We've mentioned that tonight. Continuum of alternative placements. Again, we've mentioned that. Placement decisions, the IEP team, children in private schools. We've talked about that. Parental consent. Melissa mentioned that. Referrals, initial evaluations. I talked about the 90 before the 90. This evaluation procedures, required screenings. We've mentioned that. Reevals, how MTS and RTI specific, how that feeds into it. He's got best practices on each one of these, what a manifestation determination is, if the kid's done something, has been out of his regular placement for 10 or more days due to discipline or other reasons. We'll talk about the manifestation, the DEC 5 functional behavior assessment when we talk about disciplining EC kids. Definition of change placement. I think you can see how crude this slide looks compared to the rest. This is my slide. This is what I contributed to this one. You can see I'm not too good. Definition of change of placement, out of school, in school bus, changing schedule, or classroom. That's what button C. Accelerate. And then the other one is you have to go to the manifestation. You have an accelerated manifestation of kids showing the pattern. This is the one that always gets beginning administrators. And I'll explain that one in just a minute. What a manifestation is, minimum this one is gold. I'm telling you, this is the best one I've ever seen for emerging administrators in terms of what to do. All right, now showing a pattern. This is the last thing for tonight. Sometimes people are just, you're not smart enough to help some people. They're just too dumb. So if you have an exceptional kid and you say, well, I can suspend them up to 10 days. So I'll just do it one day at a time. I'll put them in ISS. Anything other than button C counts as a change of placement. And they say, but I've got 10 times. I can do that 10 times. No, you don't have 10 times. The third time the kid exhibits the same behavior, that's a pattern. It doesn't matter. Well, I've only suspended them 2 days so far this year. I still got 8. No, you don't. Kid, this is the third time that kid is fault. He goes to the front of the line. We do a manifestation determination, functional behavior assessment. We do an updated IEP. We do an updated psychological. And we determine if this kid, that fighting, that third time he's fought this year, is a function of his disability or not. Oh God, that's so much paperwork. I still had 8 more days that I could do something with that kid. No, you didn't. As soon as that kid shows a pattern, we have to check to see if that behavior is a function of his disability. That's the one that gets you right there. For beginning administrators, they think that it's about the time or the days. No, it's about what's best for that kid. You're focused again on the convenience of the adults. We don't want to have to do that paperwork. We're trying to find the least restrictive environment. We're trying to find the right placement. We don't need to be punishing a kid for something that's a function of his disability. Again, when we're doing that, we're running schools for the convenience of the adults, not for what's good for kids. And that one will come back and bite you. It's hard to go to court and say, you know, this kid has hurt some child. You get sued. You go to court. The parents of the kid who gets hurt. You know, this kid's done this 7 times this year. Well, we still had 3 more days that we could suspend him. He's done the same thing 7 times. Well, yeah. I'm telling you, 3rd time, after that, you're going to lose in court, period. You're just going to lose. If the kid, you know, continues to do the same thing over and over again, and you don't do anything, you don't do the manifestation determination to see if it's a function of his behavior, and he keeps on doing it and somebody gets hurt, as my little Irish mother would say, your hide won't hold shucks when the court gets done with you. I can tell you right now, it will not go well for you. Mandy, you got the last question of the night?
So what if it is a if they call it and say, well, it is a manifestation of
excellent. That's a good question. All right, if it's manifestation of their behavior, of their disability, then we're going to have to convene an IEP. We're going to have to see if we're going to have to do a new behavior plan. Might have to do a change of placement. There's a number of things, but what we're going to do now is through the avenue of the IEP team and not discipline. See, we've been handling this kid with discipline over here as a response to what his behavior is. We no longer going to do that. Now we're going to put it over in the court of the IEP team, and we're going to maybe add a functional behavior plan or update that one or make it more restrictive. We may change his placement. There's a Melissa knows this better than me. There's probably 5 or 6 things that we could do, Melissa. Would you say that I'm accurate in that?
Yes, sir.
There's 5 or 6 things that we could do now, but this no longer is a disciplinary issue. This is a disability issue. We're going to handle it through the IEP now. And there's a number of things we may change that kid's placement. He may not only not be in that room, he may not be in that school or that program anymore. We may put him on a behavior plan. We may do a one-on-one. There's a number of things. There's 5 or 6 big things with little things behind them that we could do now. But we're no longer handling this as a due process discipline incident. We're now handling this as a disability incident. And that opens up a whole lot more things that we could do to get this kid assistance. So yeah, if the kid manifests, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. That means that we've got some more options. We've got more options to try to get this kid some help and support. All right, next week's week 4. I'm looking forward to case studies. Y'all are doing really well. I'm enjoying reading all of your posts. Your posts are excellent, by the way, on your discussion boards. You're doing a really good job. You're very thorough on those. Now, you know, I wouldn't tell you I'd tell you if it wasn't good. You know, I'd say something like this should have been written in crayon. Try again. So they're really good. Your OMAs are good. Everybody seems to be on pace with that. I love it when I hear you say, I talked to my AP, or I did this, or I consulted my principal. We talked about this. The more of that you can do, the better for you the more you'll learn. Remember, I'm just a crazy old man out in the yard, hollering, get off my lawn. You really learn from your principal and the administrators in your building. And the more you can talk with them, the more that you can consult with them. And you can blame me. They'll maybe do this, maybe ask you this. That's fine. I'll take it. But get out there, put yourself out there, learn this stuff. Again, I'm not claiming that I'm training you to be a compliance technician in Charlotte CTs. I'm trying to get you ready to understand the magnitude of what being your initial role as an administrator, which would be the LEA rep. That here's some things that would really help you. You're going to have to grow into the job after that. I can't prepare you for everything, but I can get you started. All right, Michelle.
For our case studies that we're presenting, I know that our team is developing the PowerPoint based on the questions that we have asked. Is there kind of a time estimate that we have that we need to present in?
No, I like dominoes.
Just pretty much answering the question.
30 minutes or less, dominoes. Okay. Everything I do is 30 minutes or less. I can't eat dominoes anymore. Makes me too big, but I'm a dominoes fan. 30 minutes or less. One of the things that hopefully you learn in an operations course, and I've really been kind of ranting about this, you got to learn when enough is enough. Time. We could all do better if we had more time. That's kind of like, reviewing your work. When I say you can move on to the next, yeah, you can put it through review again, a task or whatever, but do you really need to? Well, I might not make a full. It won't be the end of the world if you don't, but you got to know when enough is enough. And so for any of your case studies, 30 minutes or less. 20 minutes is even better. Be succinct. I had a doctoral final defense yesterday, and I'll limit mine to 30 slides in 30 minutes. And they're like, spent 3 years of my life on it. Yeah, but that was you. After 30 minutes, I may go to sleep. I'll definitely be bored. So 30 minutes or less, 30 slides. So that's your limits, 30 minutes or less, 30 slides. It shouldn't take you more than 10 slides on this one. But, that's your limits. That's a good question, though. Other questions that we have? All right.
For task 2 from the AppTel, are we taking
I was supposed to talk about that tonight, wasn't I? Oh, just use the template that I gave you. It's under week 1, under module 1. Let me pull it up right quick. I've already got it loaded. Just remember, right here, I've got task 2 guidance. Tells you exactly what to do, what your headings are, and what to stick under them. This is it. And I've got one for task 3 as well. Tells you exactly what to do. This is a 15-minute, folks. Simply take and copy that right there, and then AppTel task 1. Just take, the prompt or task label off of it and copy and paste it right there. Easy peasy. Right down the line. Yep. And make sure, and then, you have finished task 1 and you did your EC audit in it. Just copy and paste it right there. There you go. Make sure you got your professional growth plan graphic organizer. But that's it right there. Task 2 guidance. Let me show you where that's found. Move that out of the way. So, under week 1, under module 1, up here. Module 1, OMA materials. Under module 1, finally open. OMA guidance right here under module 1. Click to open. Here's all the cheat sheets right here. There they are. There's all your cheat sheets right there that you need. Under OMA guidance, under module 1. Right here under module 1. And under OMA, let's see. I've got a template in there that you can use. And then under the regular OMA materials folder, I've even got an example, I believe. Look at there. I put an example in for you. Look at that. So it ought to be pretty quick and easy to do that. Just copy and paste right into the paper, right? What it says to do. There's your headings. That's all you have to do. Because all we need to see, what we really want is that professional growth plan. That's what we really want, is it. Because we made you do an academic one last semester. We didn't let you choose. Because we knew if you did an academic one, you could just copy and paste for OMA task 2. Now, if you'd done one on discipline or curriculum or any of that, it wouldn't have worked. You'd have had to launch a whole new, basically APTEL, 3 tasks to do that. And so we don't have time for that. You know, again, time is a valuable commodity. The older you get, the more you'll understand that, not just in your, but in a professional sense. If you want to have a work-life balance, you have to know when enough is enough, and you have to set some parameters on yourself. You're all self-determinant people. You're all ambitious people. That's who we want to run schools. We want people who want the challenge. But the problem with that is you have to put some restrictions on yourself. When is enough? Enough. Otherwise, you'll burn yourself to a crisp. So I saw something the other day said the secret to success in leadership, and it's 3 little words, and it was work more hours. And that's true. The more you work, the more you can get done, but you can't go down rabbit holes where you spend all your time on one thing to perfect it and let other things go. Yeah, working more hours will help, but knowing how to distribute those hours is more important for a leader. You can't just spend all your time on one thing. This is good enough. Let's move on. We've met the criteria. Let's move on. We can do more stuff. We can get more done. We can be more effective in our leadership because we can touch more areas, know what's going on in more things. Your job as principal is to know it all. That's why I tell people all the time at Gardner Webb, my job is to know everything. That's been my training for the last 40, how long I've been a school administrator. I've been a school administrator for 41 years. That's what your job is to know everything. If you get down a rabbit hole and you spend too much time on one thing, you can't know everything. Your job is to know everything. Period.
One more question. For
Yes.
our case study, I see the article, but I don't see the questions. I don't know if it's not downloaded on my computer. I just don't see where I found the
All right,
questions.
let's go to that. Let me share my screen. So here's the case study. I should have one more document right there. Let me get that and upload it. Because this one that I'm bringing up doesn't have the stuff on the end of it that it's supposed to have. Don't know why. Let me get it for you right quick.
Okay, thank
Let me see. Let me go back. Let me go over that. I hate this thing.
I think I got it from or Dr. Stedman under week 14.
Probably. Let's see.
If
Right
it's the same
here.
document.
Right here. This was supposed to be in there. All right, I got it. Better not put it on that. You're not gonna let me do it? What in the world? And there it is, and I'll make it available to y'all. And let's see what it says. Make sure it downloads. And there it is. Be sure to read Chapter 6, School Discipline, Principal's Quick Guide. What should the principal's course of action be? Be sure to address due process and arbitrary capricious, 4 ethical paradigms. PowerPoint, you will have 15 to 30 minutes to present. After the Zoom session, write and submit a half-page reflection. Again, the half-page reflection, you can talk about the case, you can talk about how your team worked or didn't work. That one comes directly to me. It's not, it's private to me. You can tell me how the experience went for you. Did you learn something? Make sure you cite the relative laws. This one, I've gone over this one with you. You know, they broke federal law, broke state law. You can bring any of that in. You know, they violated all 4 of the ethical paradigms, the teacher did. And so I didn't ask a lot of specific questions on this one. So, but you can see that Bobby got no due process. He's going to be put out for a year, 0 tolerance, all the things that I have talked about on this. And I didn't make this real tight in terms of specifics. This is one of those things where you got to kind of dig a little bit and find some stuff out. Now, I've outlined this one pretty heavily for you and told you, what to be looking for. I'll do that a lot with the first one. I'll do a little bit, but then when we get to the end, I'm just going to tell you, you should have learned this stuff. Go. Again, it's that gradual release, but I've given you, I haven't demanded a lot of this, but I want you to grow and learn and find out. I mean, it should strike you odd that you're going to fail Bobby over, turning in his brother's homework assignment. Is that arbitrary? Is it capricious? Is that too much punishment? What's the handbook say for cheating, turning in your brother's homework? What's the state grading scale? I mean, what's the grading scale in your district? What does your code of conduct say is the punishment for cheating? Can you punish him grade wise and disciplinary? No, that would be double jeopardy. That'd be capricious. That's too much punishment. What is 0 tolerance? 0 tolerance means if you cheat, we put you out for the year. Well, but you didn't have any due process. Well, you get due process. Did he get to tell his side of the story? Did he get to bring witnesses? All those kinds of things. Did it fit the parameters? Is being failing for the whole year, is that excessive punishment for simply turning in your brother's homework paper? Those are the things that, what's the school to prison pipeline? Failing kids. Starts the school to prison pipeline. What is that? What is 0 tolerance? Expulsion. Put a kid out for a year without being able to have any recourse. All of those things factor into this case. All right. Good questions. But again, in the end, I'm going to ask you, what are you going to do with the teacher that would do this? What are your options with her? What do you think you ought to do? She violated federal and state law. You could dismiss her if you wanted to with cause. You don't have to go through, it's not about what kind of teacher she is. You ain't going to go through any of that mess. This would be an easy dismissal, or would you put her on an action plan? Or would you just tell her not to do it again? I mean, what? And that's the climate that we're in right now. It's hard to find teachers. Now, my personal is I'd rather have nobody than a bad body. I don't want somebody abusing kids. Are we running the building for teachers, or are we running for kids? It's your perspective. And so, your group presentations will be next week. Make sure everybody from your group is here. And we'll dig into this and talk. And, good thing is I'm live, but I'm not with you. So if I throw stuff, you won't get hit, other than your feelings might get hurt a little bit. But as my former first grade teacher, Linda Curtis, who was the best teacher I ever had as a principal, she used to tell her first graders all the time, suck it up, Buttercup. You'll be okay. So y'all will be okay. Yeah, we run them for kids. We run schools for kids. We run school for kids. Otherwise, they don't work. They just don't work. They just don't work. All right. I see our time is up. We made it in 2 hours tonight on EC night with questions and everything else. We did good tonight. I'm very proud of you. We did good. Sometimes this night takes 2 or 3 hours. It takes 3 or 4 hours. Again, we've got 4 presentations on case studies next week, I'm guessing. At 30 minutes each, the max. We should be done in 2 hours. We'll be okay. First one might take longer, but we'll be okay. Alicia, you got a question? Elisa?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if you saw my message about my principal.
Was it in the chat or?
Yeah, I sent it as a direct message.
Sign my law, the current sign it for you. Have the current principal sign it before they leave.
Okay, thank you.
Because thank you. That's I'm gonna use that one right quick too. If you know that principals are coming and going on vacation, some of them won't come back. The person that signs it is supposed to be the one that was at the helm when you did the hours, that they can attest that they saw you doing the hours. So catch them before they leave. That if you can't, we'll just have to substitute the new one, but try to get the old one to sign before they leave. Michelle, you got a question?
Yeah, a lot of us in our group are wondering, do we need to start a new log for clinicals or do we attach to the old one?
Well, I mean, if you should have finished your spring one, then you start a new one.
Okay, we just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, you should have already, you could cut it off in April if you got your you got your 200 hours for spring. As soon as you got your 200 hours, cut it off and start your next one, because you got to have 100 this summer. And as you know, hours are going to come to a grinding halt about next week, unfortunately. Schools, as soon as school's out, it's done. Maybe, hopefully they're doing some master scheduling or something like that you can come back and watch. I'm hopeful that you can get some hours, because there are no hours in July, and we're done by the end of July. That whole month is a dead month in terms of hours. Nothing going on in school then. And you can come and hang around with the principal, but they're not going to be there in July either. Schools have just about closed in July now. All right, next question. Who's got one? Leanne, you got one?
North Carolina's moving over to Infinite Campus and leaving Power School this summer. Is it okay if I train with our data manager for our principal to get some of my hours?
That's perfect.
Okay.
That would be really good.
Okay.
Yeah, that conversion is going this summer. That's a good point. That may be a way to get some hours, because all of them going to have to go through the training as well. Even the ones that have been trained in Power School, they're going to have to go through that, the Infinite Campus training. And so ask if you can set in with them on that. That would be really good. South Carolina teacher evaluation training's coming up. Look into that. I put that in your shell last week as well. South Carolina runs some sessions on that. That's a good way to get some hours this summer. So look for that one. Keisha, you got one?
Yes, this is going to be like an embarrassing question, but it is what it is. Due to the fact that one of my students broke my flash drive, and everything that was on there is on there, including my clinical hours, I had to actually start all over again because I was almost done. So I had to start all over again. So are you going to penalize me if I just put all S's in one line, all L's in one line, and all T's in one line? Or do you want everything mixed up? Or does it not matter?
Doesn't matter. Okay,
all
I do is count the hours.
Okay.
I want you to do, I don't want you just doing a bunch of supervision, but again, that's up to you. Try to get all your activities done, but the main thing is the hours.
Okay.
And the quality of those hours is really represented in your competency folio. That's what I really like, is that competency folio.
Okay.
We're just putting the check in the box because the state says you have to do 500 hours. Okay, 500 hours. But
Okay.
the quality of that and what you've learned, you display to potential employers and to our creditors. We display that through your competency folio, those artifacts. That's where the richness of data comes from.
Okay.
And so.
All right. Thank you.
So don't worry about that piece other than I hate that happened to you, but you saw me
I have
save
to
on
start
mine.
everything. I was just on my task 3. Now I have to start over again.
Oh no. It's
all good.
Yeah, it's working with kids though. That's part of the, that's part of the wonder of we're getting to work with kids every day.
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
All right. It's good to see y'all this week. I appreciate you being with me every week. It means a lot. I'll see you again soon. Everybody have a good week.